My family life as a kid was just chaos, just pure chaos. Like not bad, but just not good. And so when I became an exchange student, I could finally kind of reinvent myself. The ability to speak German and know something about German culture became part of my identity.
How has it changed over the last like 20 years in Berlin?
Yeah, it's gotten way more expensive now. It's basically the same price as a big city. It's super hard to find an apartment. I mean, back then, when you were looking for an apartment, you would just find the guy who was responsible for the building and say, hey, can I rent an apartment? And he'd hand you a box full of keys and say, go pick one. It's gentrification, but at the same time, it needed some gentrification. People like to complain about how Berlin's becoming too vanilla or changing, but if it didn't change over 25 years, that'd be pretty sad too. Germans have no filter. They just tell you what they're thinking, so it's hard to not take it personally sometimes.
How do you feel with all of that after 23 years in Germany? Do you feel like you know the rules and you're okay with people being direct with you, or is there still sometimes a tension there?
No, there's sometimes I feel like I need to just lock myself in a closet and have a good cry.
When you go back to the US, do you have any like reverse culture shock?
When you have a beer in Germany, they bring the beer to the table, everybody has to say cheers first. So when I go back to the States and I have a beer with my friend and they just put a beer down, my friends start drinking, I'm like, what are you doing? It feels so, it like hurts me.
So why don't we kind of like take it back to the beginning? I know that you've lived in Germany for a long time now, right? But where are you from originally? Where did you grow up?
I grew up in Denver, Colorado. That's where I'm originally from.
Denver, Colorado. Okay, so when you were growing up, were you doing any traveling? Was there any inkling that at some point in your life you're going to end up living, across the ocean? Or
no, it's kind of where, I mean, my great grandmother was from Germany, so there was a sort of little connection. But what really happened was in 7th grade, we had to take a foreign language. And I didn't want to take Spanish because I thought everybody takes Spanish, like even my Mexican friends. French, it seemed like all the cool kids took French and I thought I was better than the cool kids. And so then they said, the only thing we have left is German, but nobody really takes German. And I just thought like, well, if nobody takes it, then it's punk. And I'm just a punk, so I'm going to take German. And I pretty much regretted it pretty quickly because nobody could help you. You couldn't call any of your friends to help you with the homework. And we were all just kind of a bunch of misfits in this German class. And then I had German for 4 years in middle school and high school and just eventually became an exchange student, which is sort of like chance. So no, like I was always kind of interested in Europe. I remember we had a British kid in our school in elementary school and I thought that was kind of interesting. I remember he thought it was weird that I thought it was interesting. But for some reason, I thought Europe was interesting, but I can't really remember why.
But you do have some lineage from Germany, you said.
Yeah, my great grandmother, she emigrated to the U.S. in like 1911, and one of those big waves of there was no food in Europe, so they sent everybody to America. So she went, but she was just kind of a weird old lady to me. She spoke with an accent, had very thick pantyhose. Mm-hmm. So,
I mean, it kind of sounds like you learned German against all odds. I mean, for one thing, you weren't really necessarily drawn to the German culture originally, at least with your great grandmother. When you took the class, you didn't really like it, but now you're living in Germany. So I don't know. It seems like an unlikely story, but it happened.
Well, it was kind of a savior, really, because my family life as a kid was just chaos, just pure chaos. Like not bad, but just not good. It was just chaos. And so when I became an exchange student, I could finally kind of reinvent myself. I could finally add some stability to my life by reinventing myself. And part of that reinvention was, I speak German. I lived in Germany. And so I know that now looking back at the time, I didn't realize it. But looking back now, that's basically what happened was then the ability to speak German and know something about German culture became part of my identity. And then in my 20s, I lived in Denver. I was trying to become a journalist in Denver. There weren't that many jobs. And I saw a job opening with Bloomberg News in Germany. And so then I was like, my journalism and my German can come together and I can live. I don't know how many expats you talk to. I think it's classic. You say, I'm going to go there for 2 or 3 years and then I'll come back and get on with my life. And then I've been here for 25 years.
Yeah, it just kind of happens.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I can definitely relate to that. The idea of like, I mean, I'm not sure exactly how you were feeling in the US, but for me, sometimes I feel like I don't fit in all the way, even in Canada where I'm from. And so when I have taken the steps to kind of get to know another culture or learn a different language and feel some acceptance from that particular group, it seems like it means a lot to me because I don't necessarily always feel that way in my own culture. And so I don't know, can you relate to that? As kind of when you said that German became part of your new identity, is that what you mean? That you didn't feel like you necessarily had an identity in the US?
Maybe I had an identity, but I always knew Denver was too small. I knew that that wasn't where I was going to stay. I thought it would probably be LA or New York. Um, I mean, it's funny to say you're looking for justification from a foreign culture, kind of. There was actually a famous book when I moved to Germany about called The Freedom of the Foreigner, that like, it's not your culture, so you're not responsible for that culture, but you get to move around in it, you get to benefit from it, but you don't have to feel responsible for it. And you also, my wife calls it the foreigner bonus. When somebody hears my accent, then they treat me differently than they might treat another German. And so you can get away with more. So I think it's the same thing. And also you feel, yeah, like you're saying, you do feel kind of special. Like, oh yeah, I mean, you have an admiration for this culture you're living in. So it's nice that they acknowledge you, but then they also acknowledge you in a different way. So it helps you if maybe we don't have the best self-esteem. I don't know.
Yeah. Yeah. It could be that it kind of like refills the tank a little bit where, yeah, and I guess there are like maybe some positive elements of that and some negative elements of that. It definitely puts you in a unique position of interfacing with a society that you would never be able to do in your home country, right? And I think it has to do with expectations as well. Like, how well do you feel like you should be able to navigate things? I mean, in university, I took different language classes, including a German class, and in those kind of classes, you always have to do like a presentation of some kind throughout the semester, and kind of practice your speaking ability. And I found that was oftentimes easier to do than to do presentations in English because I let go of all of the expectations. I was like, I am going to mess this up. I am going to sound silly, but like that's okay. No one's expecting me to be perfect.
There's actually, because I do stand-up comedy and I do it in both German and English. And a lot of German people, when they start out, they do English, they do it in English. And they say they're doing it because they think they can express themselves better in English. But it's more of what you're saying. You're doing this difficult thing, and you can then kind of hide behind the language. Like, you're nervous about getting up on stage, so you look for any crutch you can get. And one of those crutches you can get is do it in a foreign language. And then it's like you said, if somebody doesn't laugh at it, oh, maybe they didn't understand maybe they didn't understand my accent, or maybe I got the grammar wrong. So you have sort of an immediate out. Again, you get bonus point. You get the foreigner bonus, like my wife says. And so every time a German comes up and says, "Oh, I just prefer to do it in English," I think, you're hiding from the reality of presenting yourself. You're presenting you in English rather than you in German. I think that's kind of like, yeah, what you're talking about. You're doing it in a different language, so you're protected. You get the grammar armor.
Sure. Yeah, it's kind of like putting a mask on, even like psychologically, just separating yourself a little bit from your insecurities. Like, oh, this isn't me. This is another version of me that's doing this. I think you notice that too when you talk to people who speak multiple languages. They'll always say, oh, swears sound so much more severe in my language than they do in this other language. And, whether, the swears are better in Spanish than they are in German, or better in German than they are in Swedish, who knows? I just think that when it's your own language, it hits a little bit differently because it really does feel real. Sometimes I'll talk to people who have learned English as a second language and they're throwing all kinds of swears out there like they're nothing. And for me, I'm like, those are pretty heavy. Like, do you know how heavy those are? And I probably do the same thing in other languages too. Like, I might not know the kind of gravity of it.
Totally. And sometimes they use them a little bit wrong. Like, I almost like punched one of my coworkers one day because he kept saying "fuck me," and the way he was saying it was like he was basically saying it to me. He didn't realize how he was saying it, but in America, you wouldn't even say that in an office, really. I mean, maybe things have gotten more relaxed now, but that was like late 90s. You wouldn't say that in an office to begin with. And then he kept saying it the way he was saying it. It was just like, yeah, you have a visceral reaction rather than this is a word I learned in my adulthood. So it's a word you grew up with. And he just kept saying it. And yeah, Germans love to drop the F-bomb, and they use it all the time. And you just feel like going, listen, you can't, there's an 80-year-old man here. You can't say that.
Like, sure. Yeah. And I guess it might have to do with the language. It also might have to do with some social rules. Like, we have some assumptions about where it's okay to swear and where it's not okay to swear. But yeah, it's almost like it's not a swear word if it's not in your native language. It's just a word. It's just a sound,
Yeah.
because we tack on so much contextual meaning to the words that we use. And in our native language, we don't even recognize the process that's led us to believe how quote unquote good or bad that word is. It's just like in our brains. But then when you learn another language, you're starting from scratch. You're seeing it from the outside. And so for you, it's just like, this is just a sound. I mean, what's so crazy about this? It's just another sound in the language, And so I think that's all kind of connected where like speaking another language can be a mask, But it can also be like, it is that, but then I guess at the same time, it can also be super vulnerable to put yourself in a situation where you are going to sound silly. Like you're disadvantaging yourself as well. Like maybe there's what was the expression you used? The foreigner.
Oh, the foreigner bonus. You mean the foreigner bonus?
The foreigner bonus, yeah. But it could also be the foreigner like disadvantage because everyone gets what's going on and you don't get it and you're kind of like lagging behind. So like how do those two things exist in the same universe?
It's crazy. Last week I got to be a garbage man for a day. Just sort of a lucky happenstance thing. And these guys spoke with such really thick Berlin accents. Like I understand it, but yeah, I had to focus on it that sometimes I didn't know. And they really were talking about banal things half the time. Like I'm so focused on what they're saying. I'm totally trying to understand it. And then when I finally understood it, I was like, oh, he was just criticizing the way he was driving. And yeah, so then it's like the foreigner detriment. Like,
yes,
you just start trying to. And I remember when I was an exchange student, I started to get fluent in German. I had trouble for a while because I didn't know the name. Like the names are different, like how people are called. So I didn't know where a sentence stopped and the name began, or even a city name or cultural references. So I kind of had this problem of I was finally understanding the language, but I didn't get I was like, what's that word? And the word was just Kevin, basically.
Yeah, that's another level of difficulty as well. Trying to kind of parse sentences, especially at the beginning, right? That listening comprehension. So you took German in school and then you ended up doing an exchange program in Germany. Was that like focus on the German language or were you taking classes in English?
I was straight put into high school. I was in 11th grade in America. I was in 11th grade in Germany.
It was still in high school even.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
It was nuts. Yeah, and I mean, I was taking like organic chemistry, which I'd never had in America. I had no idea what he was talking about. Carbon chains? I don't know. And it was a weird situation because like in the organic chemistry, the chemistry teacher yelled at me, but I could barely understand him at that point, that I was just too lazy. I wasn't putting enough effort, but it was just language. I just didn't speak enough to get in there. So it was trial by fire. I had to learn German.
What was your German level like when you first went for the exchange program?
Well, I mean, I'd had 4 years at that point, but it wasn't great. I mean, I could maybe count to 20. I understood the cases, but it was probably more like I'd had 2 years, to be honest.
Right.
It was pretty basic.
I mean, some people do kind of criticize the way that languages are taught in schools. Like you can take it for a million years in high school or whatever, like throughout your education. And then at the end, maybe not even speak the language. You see that a lot here in Canada with French. Like you'll ask someone like, hey, do you speak French? And they're like, well, I took it in school, which is just another way of saying, no, they don't speak French.
Yeah.
So like, what was your experience like in those 4 years? Did you feel like it helped you or not really?
No, it definitely helped me. Like I had I had this basic thing. I had these things I'd learned that I didn't know why I'd learned them. And then suddenly they were useful. And I think it's a little bit of what you're talking about in the beginning, that I didn't think I was going to end up in Germany. That's just sort of like this chain of events during these 4 years. So I had them. I just didn't know. I probably would have stored them somewhere differently if I'd known. So I could call back. I could go back and say, okay, I don't know how much German you know. I know there's a difference between going zu Hause or not going towards my house, or I'm at home, like going home or I'm at home, which I remember that being just totally confusing in German class. I could never get it. And now I can't imagine not getting it. Like
the prepositions in German, they're brutal because like, like every language uses their own prepositions. You have to learn a new word for to or at or on or whatever. People understand that. But the weird thing with German is that on its face, German and English have a lot of similarities, right? They're from a similar language family, and there's a lot of words that are the same. But when it comes to prepositions, anytime you would use one in English, it seems like they always use a different equivalent in German.
It means something is a little bit different, yeah.
Yeah, like we would say at and they would say on, and we would say in and they would say at.
Yeah.
Like it's always moving.
Like the equivalent of to, I'm going to my house, in German is zu, and that means I'm at my house. So it's like,
Yeah, it's always a little bit different. I mean, like how was it then? Like for the year in, it was 1 year in Germany, right? The high school.
yeah, yeah.
I mean, like if you're going in there and you can speak some German, but not like a ton, and you're now studying completely in German, and you're required to take tests and show how much you've understood the material. I mean, is that year just a wash academically? You're like, how do you pass tests?
Yeah, I mean, like I don't think about it much anymore, but I remember back then I pretty much thought like, yeah, I was not in school for 11th grade. I was in German class. That's it. Like, and even at the end, there were actually two other exchange students at my high school, and there was these two women who just went shopping all day. They didn't learn German, and so at the end of the year, we sat in the principal's office, and he said to me in German, I have the grades that your teachers gave you, but you learned the language, you did some activities in the school, you tried, so why don't we give you grades so that you don't have to repeat 11th grade when you get back to the States? And so like we went through and I was trying to be kind of honest and virtuous and say, well, you can give me a B here. And so he gave me good grades. But then he turned to the two other women who didn't even speak German, just said, here's your grades. Like, there you go.
So is that another example of the foreigner bonus?
Yeah, I guess so. Yeah. Like, hey, you tried, so here you go. Yeah.
Good job. A for effort. You did it. You learned the language. I mean, honestly, like that does seem like a fair way of doing it, because how much can you expect, a kid from the US to understand like, chemistry in German all of a sudden, and then just for that year, and then you're back in the States anyway. So,
yeah.
Sorry.
No, they're just, I mean, it's different education systems. So the system you're in is there different areas. So you can't really just say, I was in 11th grade here, now I'm in 11th grade here. That doesn't work like that. Like
I did an exchange in Germany as well, but it was through university. And so it was like a summer class basically. So I did 1 month in northern Germany, and it was specifically a German class. And so that's how it transferred back to Canada, was like this an elective class. It wasn't my major. And so it was like kind of a condensed version of a German class. So it was 9 to 2, I think, for 5 days a week. And then you would do an entire semester in 1 month. And it was really helpful. The whole class was in German as well. It was like a kind of an immersion deal. And yeah, it was fun. It was fun to do it in Germany and have an application to use the language. I mean, that being said, I was surrounded by other, exchange students from the US and Canada and England. And so there was a lot of English, but in class was German. But something that was kind of frustrating, talking about like how the classes are graded and stuff, is that, I mean, I did okay in university. I wasn't like exceptional, but I was pretty good at German. And so this class was the highest grade I had ever gotten in any of my classes in like the, 3 years before this. And then at the end, I got this grade and I was super happy about it. And then they said, oh yeah, but it doesn't count towards your GPA. It's just like a pass or fail. So you just get like the check mark, but it doesn't boost anything. And I was like, this was the one class where I was actually doing good and it doesn't count. Come on.
That was my German classes at college, because by the time I went to college, I spoke fluent German. And so they just kind of, I mean, I got good grades there and they did count to my GPA, but it did feel kind of useless, because the teachers were just kind of like, well, what are we going to do with you? Like, your German's so good. I would write something and just be like, yeah, that's fine. Here you go. So
right.
So like how your thing felt kind of useless as a GPA, mine felt kind of useless because it was like, it would be better for my German to just go have a beer with a professor than sit there in class.
Sure. It's a formality. The test is kind of a formality.
Yeah, totally. Yeah.
I mean, some people do kind of fall through the cracks of the language systems because it's hard to place people. It's hard to know what their level is. Like in my classes, like I also took Spanish. I took a semester of Mandarin Chinese, and I would see people in all of those classes who were native speakers, who were just taking it for the credits. But they were allowed to do that because there was some kind of little caveat. Like, for example, in my German class, there was a girl who grew up in Canada, but her parents were German. So she spoke German her whole life at home, but she didn't really know how to write. And so, okay, fair enough. She's in this university class to learn how to read and write German. But in terms of comprehension, she was bilingual. And so, she's going to have an advantage over me, right? In the tests. And I saw that in Spanish as well. There would be kids who spoke Spanish at home and then they would write the tests. But sometimes you don't also know what certain grammar things are called. So there was this one kid in my Spanish class. I remember he didn't really show up for class at all because he spoke Spanish already. But then when it came to writing the tests, they would say write the preterite version of this verb. but he didn't know what the preterite version was because he didn't see that. He wasn't at that class, right? And so then he wouldn't get that one right, even though he knows exactly what that form is. If you gave him an example, he could do it. And I feel the same about English. Like, what's the past participle of the verb to eat or whatever? I have no idea.
I was a journalist for 20 whatever years. I had to Google the past, present perfect, or all that stuff. Like,
yeah,
I should know it, but yeah. Well, because you just learn the language. You don't learn it as a language.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, you definitely don't know the grammar of your native language. I think that's a common experience for most people. Like, I learned all of the grammar terminology through foreign languages. Like, what's an adjective? I don't know. I had to learn that. I learned it in Filipino before I learned it in English. And so, it's interesting in that way. So then you took it in German as well. So you took German in university as well, all the way through your degree?
Yeah, I have a degree in literature and a minor in German.
Okay, nice.
Like at the end, I was just writing papers about German music or German books or whatever. Yeah.
And were you traveling to Germany during this time as well?
I was. I used to. I don't look like it now, but I used to be a competitive cyclist. So I came back to Germany a couple summers to race bikes for like 2 months, 2 summers in a row, and then. Once I stopped doing that, I actually didn't come back to Germany until, I guess I came back and did like the backpack around Europe thing one summer for 3 months in 94, I think that was. And then in 98, I just accidentally emigrated.
Just fell into Germany, got lost.
Yeah.
Made a wrong turn. I mean, when you were in the States writing about German cultural things, how did you like maintain the connection to the culture? Where were you pulling from to write those things?
Well, that's the thing. The internet was like brand new then. Like I guess we probably had internet. I don't think we did in college. I had just bought a bunch of tapes and CDs when I lived in Germany, brought some new like magazines back with me. So I think we had some German magazines in the library too. So I just would go there and look at those. Of course we had Der Spiegel. Yeah, we had, so just magazines.
So you were just reading magazines, finding things that you thought were interesting, and then writing about those kind of cultural things.
Yeah, but even then, like, I don't know how deep my cultural knowledge really was at that point.
Right.
Like, I knew a little bit. I probably knew like basic German culture.
It's different when you're in the country, isn't it, than when you're looking at it from abroad.
I remember watching the news when I first got here, when I first moved. I was a journalist, but I watched the news and just be like, what is happening? Like, who are these people? What are these topics? Yeah, it's you have to learn. You got to learn a whole other culture.
Yeah, it's I've kind of had that experience with Filipino culture as well, because I've had a ton of exposure to it, but 99% of that has been here in Canada. There are lots of Filipinos living here, and so it's easy to have a connection with the community. And I learned to speak the language here, but I had spoken Tagalog for like 10 years before I went to the Philippines, like for the very first time even. And so I did make a lot of assumptions about how well I understood the culture. Like, I totally get it. And then when I went to the Philippines, there were things that I did understand, but there were also new things I had to learn, because like when you're in the country itself, there are situations that come up that just wouldn't happen, here in Canada. And so to be well-rounded and understand a culture, you really do have to go there at some point.
Totally. I feel like, especially for younger people, I feel like the time after school, before your parents come home, like there's so many references in comedy and stuff to what people were watching on TV or what they were reading or what was big on the internet, that period of time from when you're like 14 to 18, people always talk about these like shows that are on in the afternoon on TV. And I'm just always like, so I then had to go Google what they talked about, what it was. But it's weird that period of time when you're like a teenager, what you did in the afternoon, how big of a role that plays in just pop culture.
Yeah, pop culture is huge. And what I found, like I lived in Colombia for a while as well, what I found is that even if you've seen the same show or the same movie, it's going to be dubbed in a different language. Depending where you are in the world, I guess. But in my case, it was all dubbed in Spanish. And so, my wife is Colombian, so her and her family would be referencing these like Disney movies, which I have seen, but the lines are different because they're all in Spanish and they're translated a little bit differently to kind of, make sense with like, Latin humor. And so they would be like saying all these lines and like, yeah, Finding Nemo, you've heard that, right? And I was like, yeah, but I didn't watch it in Spanish. And so I don't know that line. I don't know. That doesn't mean anything to me. And so even if you've seen the thing, if you haven't seen it in the language, it doesn't make sense.
The character names are different sometimes.
Yeah, that too. It's like, who are we even talking about to begin with?
Yeah. You're like, what? Yeah.
There was, I think, a popular Conan clip with, what's that guy, the German guy's name? He makes like electronic music, but he does it kind of like in a comedic way. Whatever, it doesn't matter. But he was on, I think, Conan. He was talking about how German movie titles are translated and how sometimes they're like so far from the original that they've really become their own thing.
Yeah, they're just crazy. It's like, part of like a movie title, it sort of hints at what the movie's about. Like it's just a little, I mean, like the only one I can think of now is Airplane, which I don't even know if people even know what Airplane was anymore. And now it's like the crazy it was just called Airplane. That's it. Which was actually, there were these disaster movies in the 70s. They were called Airport, and it was about a airplane that took 12 hours to almost crash, but not really crash. And so then the spoof on that was called Airplane. That was, so the name was a joke. That those were called Airport, and then this one's called Airplane. And the Germans is like the crazy trip on the unreliable airplane, and it's like
so literal.
Yeah, it gives away so much where you're like, it's not even artistic anymore. And I actually tried to do articles on it a couple times to find out, like, at some point somebody decided we have to give these literal names. Like, why did they do that? And I never could find anybody that had an answer. Yeah, they're not titles, they're descriptions.
I mean, is that how German movie titles are in like Germany produced movies?
No, I mean, one of the most famous German movies, Das Boot. It's about a subway, about a submarine. It's simple too. The boat. It's like, so I don't know why they do it. I don't understand it. There's this other thing which is big right now on German social media, and that is when they dub a movie in German, it has its own cadence, its own rhythm, its own tone. It's this super bizarre, sing-songy, like it's not natural at all. And I don't know who came up with that. Why is that? Like, and it's so obvious that like German kids are now making fun of it. Like they'll film themselves shoveling a sidewalk, talking, like, because they talk really bizarrely and just overacting, and they'll just be like, I'm shoveling the sidewalk.
I mean, it's like the difference between actual, well, not, I shouldn't say actual, that maybe conveying something I don't want it to convey, but it's the difference between acting and voice acting.
Yeah.
But you're combining the two because you have the actual actor doing the thing and then you have the voice actor, dubbing it over. But if those two things don't line up in style, it's going to look weird.
It sounds bizarre. You just think like, why are you doing this? And then, you have the formal you and an informal you in German. And almost always, like even in love scenes, they're using the formal you in the dub version where you're like, no, nobody would ever, or just situations where no German uses the formal. They use the formal, and so it's this weird sing song, and they're using the formal. And where did this come from? Like, it's not natural.
Who made these rules?
Yeah. And I don't know. I actually know some people who do that. They're taught that in acting school. Apparently, this way to do it.
I mean, there's different registers of a language, right? And so when you're in university and you're doing a presentation, you're going to have the academic register. And when you're talking to your grandma, you're going to have a different register than when you're talking to your best friend. And I guess somewhere along the line, someone decided that, dubbing in Germany is going to have its own register.
Yeah. I mean, when you listen to like 1950s newscasts or you hear them in, like, those guys talk weird too. Like, where did that come from?
That like transatlantic accent.
Yeah, I guess they call it the transatlantic. Yeah.
And that accent doesn't exist. Even in that time, it's not how people communicated with each other. They only developed it for media. And so that's another thing. I think it was somewhat trying to bridge the gap between like Europeans and Americans to have some kind of accent that, caters to both audiences. Maybe that's not right. I don't know. I'm just guessing.
No, it sounds right.
With Spanish dub as well, sometimes it sounds a little bit like an announcer voice. Not like emotionally up and down, but that kind of like, like,
yeah.
Look at me, I'm doing a thing, I'm talking into a microphone. And sometimes it doesn't translate all the way where you're like, would they really be talking like that in this scene?
Yeah, no.
Probably not. Yeah. So then 1998, is that when you said you moved to Germany?
Yeah, that's when I moved.
Okay, and you didn't look back, you just moved and that was it.
Yeah, I mean, it all fit. Like, my mom had died. That turned into a crisis in the early 90s. I'd been with this woman for 6 years. That relationship ended. It was becoming pretty clear that I wasn't going to get anywhere with journalism in Denver. So, like, something had to happen. And and so like I had a couple of options, and one was just move to Germany, and I thought, well, I'll go to Germany, and then we'll see what happens. Yeah, and I mean, it was the right move. I ended up in a totally different caliber of journalism than I'd ever been in. Bloomberg is huge financial organization, so that opened a bunch of doors for me, and I just couldn't handle the pressure, or I didn't like working 10-hour days for no reason, just for the sake of working 10-hour days. But anyway, that opened a lot of doors, and then I moved to the Financial Times after that, and so just kind of like one thing after another, and then we had kids, and then I kept always waiting. I then had the job with this startup newspaper, and I thought, oh, they'll lay me off, and then I can make a decision what I'm gonna do with my life. They never laid me off. Like it just went on for I think 15 years.
That's a long time to wait to be laid off.
Yeah, I kept thinking like next year. This is gonna happen next year.
Any minute now. It's coming. It's coming.
I think they were surprised as I was.
I mean, that's a positive thing, I guess. They did better than they thought.
Yeah, I mean now they're part of the street.com, but yeah. I don't think they expected to live that long.
And what city was this in?
I was originally in Frankfurt, and then I was there for 2 years, and then that's when I went to the FT. The FT said, we'd like to give you this job for this online thing. And I said, I'm only going to take it if I can go to Berlin, because I was in love with Berlin at that point. And in 2000, they said, we don't care where you do it as long as you do it. So
then you moved to Berlin.
Yeah.
So out of the 25 years you've been in Germany, how many years have you been in Berlin?
Yeah, I guess I've been here 23, because we actually, when my kids were middle school aged, we were like, oh, maybe we should show them America. Let's for their English, it would be good for their English. So we moved to Portland, Oregon for 2 years.
Okay. So and then back to Germany after that.
Yeah. So, yeah.
And so out of the 23 years, what's the breakdown between like Frankfurt and Berlin?
Yeah, I was just in Frankfurt for 2 years.
Okay. And then they're all the rest in Berlin.
Yeah.
I mean, there definitely is a divide in Germany when you talk to people about cities. Everyone says that Berlin is different. It's different than the rest of the country. Do you agree with that?
Yeah, I mean, every city has a Berlin in it, I guess. It's big. I mean, it's the only really, really big city in Germany, and it's a very creative area. So what they're all generally talking about, like they like to say, Berlin isn't Germany. It's sort of this sort of creative, very left wing, a little bit detached from reality vibe. And Germany prides itself on being this big industrial powerhouse, and that they all work hard, and this myth of efficiency. Germany is not efficient, even close to efficient, but the world thinks that, and they sort of pride themselves on that. And then you come to Berlin, where people are drinking coffee at 3 p.m. and really don't care how much they earned this month.
And what was it originally about Berlin that made you want to move there? I mean, it was a part of your contract, right? You were like, I'll do it, but I want to be in this city.
It's like hard to imagine now. When I was living in Frankfurt, nobody wanted to come to Berlin, and I was open. I was like, so we had to cover weird things, like government financial things in Berlin, and people were like, I don't want to go, and I said, I'll go. And like the first time I came here, the wall had only fallen 8 years earlier, and it just felt like this, the way I describe it, Berlin felt like it was a book that it's been 3/4 written, and they're like, here's you can write your own page in this book. Like this book it's been published 3/4 of it. We're going to publish it to the end, and you get to write a page. So here, take this piece of paper and go write your book, or write this page of the book. It just felt like you were a part of the city and part of the revival of the city. And so I just thought it was great. There's stuff happening all over the place. Sure, I had to work, but I mean, I was getting paid a New York salary living in Berlin, which was super cheap. So I could do whatever I wanted. And I mean, back then, like a friend of yours would show up and say, oh, I found this, they called them Tuesday bars or a Wednesday bar, which meant it was only open one day of the week. And all you really did was find a place that nobody was renting at the moment, figured out who had the keys, and then you opened a bar in there. And the authorities here didn't care. They were busy with other things. So there were these crazy, like illegal bars and clubs, just things happening, art shows, whatever you wanted. That was happening because you could do whatever you wanted.
Kind of the wild west.
Yeah. I mean, they called it that, the Wild Wild West, and it was just a lot of fun. I mean, there were like a lot of artists who weren't really I don't know what they were doing, but you could just kind of be yourself.
How has it changed over the last 20 years in Berlin?
Yeah, it's gotten way more expensive now. It's basically the same price as a big city. It's super hard to find an apartment. I mean, back then, when you were looking for an apartment, you would just find the guy who was responsible for the building and say, hey, can I rent an apartment? And he'd hand you a box full of keys and say, go pick one. You're going to have to paint it yourself.
Wow.
We can hook some tube. If there's no water, we'll get some piping in there. But yeah, it was nuts. And now it's way more expensive. There's a much better food. You didn't used to be able to go out to eat. It's just crazy food here now. I mean, everything, it's gentrification, but at the same time, it needed some gentrification. So we have all the bad things that go along with gentrification. That's housing's difficult. Locals have gotten squeezed out in some areas. But I mean, the buildings were falling down. People were leaving parts of the city, which isn't ever good. And so it needed some of that. So people like to complain about how Berlin's becoming too vanilla or changing. But I mean, if it didn't change over 25 years, that'd be pretty sad too.
Yeah, I guess. I mean, every place is changing, right? It should be anyway, in a constant state of kind of evolution. And I guess some structure is nice. Sometimes you do need that. And Germany now, I mean, as a whole, is known as a country that has a lot of structure, a lot of kind of bureaucracy. I remember when I did my exchange there, I was at the university and they had this like cafeteria where you'd go to eat lunch, and you'd go into the lobby of the cafeteria and you look at the screen and it would say like, okay, we have a vegetarian option, we have a pasta option, we have a chicken option. And then they'd have colors associated with those different types of dishes. And then you look down at the floor and they'd have lines on the floor that were those colors. And so you'd follow that line and it would take you to the queue for the chicken or to the pasta one or whatever. And I was like, where am I? Like who, someone put a lot of thought into this cafeteria setup as opposed to just going to the counter and saying, I'll take the chicken, and they give it to you. There's a whole system built around it, you know?
Germans love systems, man. They love everything's organized. Also, what they really like is not having to be responsible for something. Just like that. Okay, I follow the green line. Nobody has to make a decision. It's all decided ahead of time. It's just gonna happen, and that's how it is. And those lines are probably still there, man. How long ago? When were you there?
Like 5 years ago. It was 2018.
I'm sure it's all the same. It has not changed.
Mm-hmm. I mean, it sounds like having a system like that does make it efficient, but you were saying that that's a bit of a lie that Germany tells that they're an efficient country. What do you mean by that?
Oh, it's a huge myth. Like you're talking about the bureaucracy. It feels like it's just stuck in 2001 here. And there's this bureaucracy of like, you need pieces of paper for things that are useless. If you write an email, like if I write an email to the government, I don't know, I want to ask about how do I get a parking pass for my car on the street? They will send me a letter back. They won't answer the email. They'll send me a letter back. So I have to wait 2 days to get a letter. Then I can write them an email again. I guess I could apply for it online, and then I had to wait 5 months, and it comes back and it's a piece of paper that somebody has written my license plate number on with a marker, like done it by hand, and then put it in an envelope and send it back to me. Whereas I don't know how things are in Canada, but there are no parking permits anymore. A little car drives around, reads your license plate, looks in the database. Oh, he's got a permit. He's fine. Or he doesn't have a permit. I'm going to email him a parking ticket, or like somehow. So there's just these weird, like archaic things, and you have to get an appointment, and you have to go see somebody, and then there's pieces of paper you have to have, and it just takes forever and needlessly. It's just frustrating.
But like, what leads Germans to believe that that's a better way of doing it? I mean, someone looked at the cafeteria and said, I don't want to have to go and tell the person what I want. Let's put these lines on the ground. So someone thought about making it better, improving it, or maybe it was always like that. I don't know. But like, what stops people from looking at this paper and going, why are we doing this? Why don't I just send an email tomorrow?
This is a question I ask all the time. One thing is personal privacy, data privacy. They all say like, I send this email. If they answer my email, somebody could intercept the email and then find something out about me personally, which is of course a huge lie, because somebody could break into the mailbox and take it just as easily. Like
more easily, actually.
Yeah, more easily. But a German would not believe that. A German thinks an email is way more hackable than, how many times have they broken into the mailboxes in my building? But so it's this myth of data privacy, and I think that government officials use this data privacy as kind of a crutch to say like, well, we can't do anything because of data privacy, when in fact you can, and there's other governments proving you could do it. And part of it is just what Germans really hate culturally is change. They want no change. So this is the way we've done it, and it's worked. Nobody's died, so we're just going to keep with this.
Mm-hmm. Keep doing it. Just keep at it.
And sort of like following the lines for me, it's this thing of like, Germans don't cross the crosswalk, and that's this green. And people say that's obedience, and I think it is obedience, but I think it's also this thing of like, the Germans don't want to take responsibility. They don't, like, whether the light is red or green is somebody else's responsibility. It's not mine at that moment. And it's sort of, I feel like that's the same thing with the lines at the cafeteria. Now the cashier doesn't have to tell you where to go or what you need. Nobody has to actually interact. It's all set down. The responsibilities are clear. Nothing's going to get confused.
Super independent. Take care of yourself. Don't bother me.
Yeah,
Kind of
yeah.
thing.
I guess so. Yeah, yeah, yeah. But also, it's not my problem. Like
Right.
if I don't get the chicken at the end of the green line, that's not my fault. That's your fault.
Right. Yeah. But then also, like, as a foreigner coming into that environment, yeah, okay, it works. It's no one's fault if you follow the right line or whatever. It makes sense if you understand the system. But I often didn't understand the systems in Germany, and I would be riding my bike on the wrong side of the street, God forbid, and people are like getting mad at me. Or I remember I put my feet up on the seat across from me on a train once and got yelled at for that. Don't do that, whatever you do. And so I found that I was often in the wrong, even when I didn't really understand what the right was. Do you feel like there's a lot of social rules in Germany?
There's also a thing in Germany that's okay to tell this total stranger that he's doing something wrong. Like, well, you Canadians are even nicer than Americans. They're more polite. Like, you might think it's kind of gross that guy's putting his feet on the train seat, but you wouldn't say anything.
No.
Whereas in Germany, it's perfectly culturally acceptable. And I'm sure the person that said, get your feet off that chair, 3 other people looked at them in the train car and were like, yeah, that's the right thing.
Get them.
Yeah, this is a weird thing. And Germans have no filter. They just tell you what they're thinking. So it's hard to not take it personally sometimes.
I mean, how do you feel with all of that after 23 years in Germany? Do you feel like you've become German, like you know the rules and you're okay with people being direct with you, or is there still sometimes a tension there?
No, there's sometimes I feel like I need to just lock myself in a closet and have a good cry. Like, you do sometimes think like, why are you being so rude to me, man? Like, I mean, I remember once I went into a cafe. Now I know what this Kuchen is. It's a russischer Zupfkuchen. I didn't know at the time. I was just trying to find out what's in the cake. And I said, so what is that? And she just screamed like, that's a russischer Zupfkuchen. Like, how do you not know what that is? And I mean, it's kind of like what you were saying, like you go out there with your accent and you sort of throw yourself in there. Like, you make yourself vulnerable. You're like, listen, I don't know. And you should know from my accent, I need your help right now. I just need your help to tell me what kind of cake this is. And that's the problem, is you're kind of vulnerable. And then Germans sometimes will just reach out and punch you, like.
I guess that's what I was talking about earlier, where there's like advantages and disadvantages to being, a foreigner someplace. Sometimes people cut you slack, and then sometimes people will reprimand you, and it feels vulnerable to receive criticism when you're like, there's no way that I would have known this. Like, I have to learn this somehow, and you're not helping me learn it. I mean, I don't want to like talk smack about Germany, but like one of the things I did notice when I was there too was like the lack of customer service. Like, people, they could not care less. At least where I was in Oldenburg, they could not care less about what I wanted or what I needed in that moment. They were working there, they were getting paid per hour, and that's all they cared about. And my number one example of that was going into an Aldi to get a SIM card for my phone. And I was having issues with it. I needed to activate it. And I asked someone there, like, how do I do this? And he was like, yeah, well, do you have a German passport? And I was like, obviously I don't have a German passport. I mean, listening to me talk, I don't have a SIM card. I'm 25 years old and I don't have a SIM card. You tell me if I have a German passport. And I was like, no, I don't have one. He's like, well, I don't know what to tell you then. And I was like, well, there's another way to do this. I just don't know how to do it. Like, where do I go to? And he went, yeah, it's time for my first break. So I don't know, man, good luck. And then just like walked away. And I was like, okay, yeah, this is a different environment than I'm used to.
I feel it's gotten better, but it's still, there's just no customer service. There's no like, why should I help you? I get paid whether I help you or not. So, and more than once I've gone into a store at like 5:45 or whatever. And then I'm like, hey, could I see this? Now we're closing up in 10 minutes. I'm not going to get it out. You're not going to buy it anyway. So
it's not worth it.
Yeah.
You were talking about how like Germans want to make sure that things are the person's fault whose fault it should be. And it's not, that person's fault that you came in 10 minutes before, and it wasn't this guy's fault that my SIM card didn't work. And so I guess Germans would maybe say, well, that's on you.
Yeah, it's not my problem.
Yeah.
I get paid either way. Yeah, it's a weird thing, especially when you come from North America, where like, I mean, the customer isn't necessarily always king, but usually, like,
yes,
you would at least try to give them some semblance of service. And here it's just like, no. it's to be fair, it's gotten better, but it's still not. The problem with all this, like I know it, I know that it exists, I know the German culture. It just hits you at weird angles sometimes. You're just like not expecting it. Like you hear somebody like that guy just helped somebody in front of you with the problem, and you think, oh, I finally found a sympathetic. He'll be nice to me, and then you go up there and he's like, do you have a German passport? And you're like, oh, I thought you were gonna help me. Oh, so,
Right. Yeah. You think you understand it and then you actually don't. And that has to do with expectations as well. You know, when you spend a lot of time in a culture or with a language, even I've noticed you start to expect like, oh, I'm good at this now. And then when you're not good at it, it like kind of hurts the ego where you're like, damn it, I thought I had that, you know, but I didn't
say something like, what?
Yeah,
No, I mean,
what are you talking about?
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, we've talked about some of the differences that kind of stand out as North Americans in Germany. Would you say that those are like the biggest ones that you noticed early on, or were there some other culture shocks that you experienced?
No, I think the rudeness, the lack of customer service. One thing I think like when you do start speaking German is like in English we ask leading questions. You know, you sort of like, which is also making yourself vulnerable. You kind of with these like the one time I had to go to the government office and there was a desk that said information, and so I thought, oh, I'll ask a leading question. I came up and said, is this where I register my address? You know, which in America they'd be like, oh no, not here. You need to go over to the office 451 and you need this piece of paper. Because I've asked a leading question. I've told them like, but I just used the wrong word. So I said, is this where I register? And she went, no. And I thought like it says you're the information person.
Yeah.
And so the right question is, where do I register my address? Oh, I thought, yeah, you need to go 451 and here's the piece of paper you need.
But
like,
do they really not know what you're referring to? Or are they like being a little bit snarky?
No, you think they're being aloof, but I don't think, I thought they were being aloof in the beginning. I thought they were being snarky, but I think it's just, they don't understand leading questions.
Yeah, because like from our perspective, it's like, well, you know what I'm asking, even if I didn't formulate it that way, you know?
But it's like, it's the responsibility thing again. Like you can't put your responsibility on me.
Right.
You're the one asking the wrong question.
I mean, it almost sounds
adults.
Like that classic joke in English where it's like, oh, can I go to the bathroom? I don't know. Can you?
Yeah. It's that kind of thing.
Like you use the wrong modal verb and get like slapped across the face for it.
I think it's funny. They actually do that in German too, but instead of saying like, I don't know, can you, they say, I'm sure you can. The question is whether you may.
Right.
I never realized that term, but that's actually in German. It's, yeah. Oh, I know you can.
Mm-hmm.
It's just whether you're allowed to.
I went to rent a bike when I was in Germany. That's how I was going to get around for the month. And so we went to this little bike shop and it was me and like this posse of international students. And somehow I got delegated the job of talking to this guy. My German was a little bit better than the rest. And so they went, oh yeah, ask about renting a bike. We all need one. We need 5 bikes. So then I said like, hey, I want to rent a bike. Do you have one? He goes, no. And then I said, okay, well, I would like to rent a bike. All of us would like to rent a bike. So like, will you have some in the future? Maybe. Not sure. It's like, okay, you understand what I'm asking though. Like all of us need a bike. So how can we figure this out? If I come back tomorrow, will you have a bike? Maybe, maybe not. Okay. Is there another store I could go to that might have a bike? Maybe it's downtown or something. And I was like, okay, I might have to do this one on my own.
It's crazy. It's weird. There's no customer service. He's down to helping you. Like, it's your problem. So where did you get a bike finally?
I had to go to a different place downtown and then they helped us. But that place was, I don't know. I mean, it was a bike rental shop. My mistake. I guess I shouldn't have assumed, just like you shouldn't have assumed that the information stand was for information.
It's weird. It's a weird answer. I don't understand those things. I'm like, what game do you think you're in, man? You're like in the bike rental game. Like,
I thought so. Yeah. I mean, now that you've been in Germany so long, when you go back to the US, do you have any like reverse culture shock? Like where some of these things might feel weird when you're in Germany, but then when you leave, you actually notice how much you've changed?
one thing like, because in Germany, you could just bump into somebody on the sidewalk and keep walking. Like, nobody's going to be mad. Nothing's going to be, I mean, maybe a little bit, but not like in the States where you have to be like, oh, I'm so sorry, man. I didn't realize. I'm sorry. You could just kind of bump into people, or I'll just push my way through a crowd, which I learned here. Then there's weird little things like when you have a beer in Germany. I don't know if you learned this in Oldenburg. They bring the beer to the table. Everybody has to say cheers first. Theoretically, you have to look everybody in the eyes. And so when I go back to the States and I have a beer with my friend and they just put a beer down, my friend start drinking. I'm like, what are you doing? It feels so, it like hurts me. Like you can't just start drinking. We have to formally start this event together. And every time you get a fresh beer, you have to say, hey, post, like, so definitely, yeah, just totally like, and yeah, it's sort of like how we were talking about the language, like words are visceral to you, they're like emotional. Then these things are also in me now. Yeah, I don't know what else. I don't know, in America, we eat with like, you cut your meat and then you put your knife down, you take a fork and then you eat with like, and in Germany, you just like shovel it in, man. You just use, and you would keep both your hands on the table. And in the US, we put one hand below the table. Those are things I notice now when you eat. Food is obviously a very big topic with me.
I noticed going out to restaurants in Germany, and I don't know if this is everywhere, but I was with a German friend and I put my cell phone on the table and he said, oh, you should never do that. You should always have your cell phone in your pocket because someone could steal it or something. Is that a German cultural norm as well?
It's funny. I was thinking about this the other day. I remember when we first had cell phones and you put it on the table and people were like, what, is your phone more important than I am?
Oh,
Yeah. And now it's kind of like everybody has their phone on the table. I think that used to be a thing. I don't know if it was because stealing. I thought it was the we're at the table together now, put your phone away.
right. He might have just been extra cautious because he was talking about safety, not about, social etiquette, I think.
Well, there is the thing of like, especially tourist areas, that somebody comes up with a map and says, hey, do you know how to get this? And meanwhile, they're taking your phone away from underneath the map.
Yeah, I mean, 23 years is a really long time. I mean, you said that German originally was a way for you to kind of formulate a new identity. How has that developed over the years? Do you feel German now? Do you feel still American? Do you feel like a mix of both of them?
I think I think of myself as a mix of both of them. Like you're saying, like I have these weird German things that I do. I know how to move into culture. I still think of myself like, if I woke up in the morning and said, what do you, I would say, oh yeah, I'm an American. Like, I'm going to get off of this and go watch. I didn't watch the Super Bowl last night, but I'm going to go watch it tonight. I mean, everybody watches American politics, but I think I do more about American politics, but I do know German politics too. I do follow it. I did apply for German citizenship because now you can have dual citizenship in Germany. And I think I'm owed it. Like I feel like I function as a citizen in both countries. So it's not like, I wouldn't say I'm German. Like as soon as they hear you German, I would say I understand Germany, but I'm not, even if I get the passport, I'm just gonna say like, well, I have the passport, but
Right.
like my blood is red, white, and blue.
Yeah. I mean, there's different ways to kind of, I don't know, define what an identity is. It could be your passport. It could be your ethnicity. It could be what culture you're familiar with. And those things don't always line up, because not every country has, for example, birthright citizenship. You could be born and raised in a different country and never get the passport. So then are you from that country? Some people would say yes, some people would say no. I think the way that we interact with people, the culture is probably the biggest one. Like when you meet someone, you can kind of get a vibe from them. And if they understand the culture, then I think we have a mental check that's like, oh yeah, okay, they fit into that box, more than if the person maybe didn't fit into that culture but had the passport. I don't think that would make a difference for us as humans in the way that we would categorize them maybe.
Yeah, totally. And I think like if you met me, you'd be like, oh, he's American. Like even speaking German.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Do Germans notice that when you speak German with them that you're American?
It takes a couple of sentences. Eventually they do. Yeah. I think in the beginning, I'm not as self-conscious about it anymore. I used to be very self-conscious. I think people just thought I was weird because I would just not talk. I didn't want to, I'm kind of a shy person and self-conscious. I didn't want people to know I just didn't want to, I didn't want them to have any negative thought about me, like, oh, this immigrant or whatever. So I just wouldn't talk very much. And I think what I did, I kind of mumbled and talked quietly. So I think they just thought I was weird. And then eventually they hear the accent and they're like, oh, you're from America. And then it would be better. But I think initially people just think he's kind of strange.
So was it like important to you to fit in and not seem different?
Yeah, that's always been important to me. So
yeah, I mean your German is really, really impressive. I mean, I know you've been speaking it for a long time, so it shouldn't be a surprise. But English speakers don't always have a good reputation for learning other languages. Canadians as well. And but it's clear you've put a lot of time into German. And I think the most impressive part is that you do stand-up comedy in German, which is that's master level.
It's crazy.
That is crazy, honestly. How did you get into doing that?
I just love stand-up. Like there was this big boom of stand-up in the 80s. I'm a kid in the 80s because cable TV started, and just like the internet now, cable TV started and they needed content. And there were already these guys standing on stage, so they just started filming them and putting it up on cable TV. And I loved it. I thought it was great. And I've always been a writer, but I just thought the writing humor was the hardest thing. So I kind of just put up this roadblock. And then at some point I said, like, you've always wanted to try it, go try it. And then you can just check it off and go do something else. And then I think I did the thing too, where I was going to do it in German so I could hide behind the language a little bit. And I got up on stage and people laughed. And then I was like, oh, okay, well, maybe we should, pursue this a little bit more.
Mm-hmm. So did you start in German?
Yeah, I think I did my first 2 gigs were German, and then I tried English. Yeah.
And now, what's the ratio between German and English?
It's 95% German now, which is I'm trying to get back some more English because I think a lot of my followers on Instagram and TikTok are actually English speakers, and they like my take on Germany, and I kind of owe them a gig or a show or two. And but I just make so much money. I'm not making a lot of money, but I mean, it's easier to make money to make a living doing German comedy.
Mm-hmm. How long have you been doing it for?
Yeah, over 10 years now.
Oh, wow. It's a long time. Yeah.
I was going back. One thing about learning the language and why I speak such good German. There's also like you could say logically, I want to learn this language, but you're not going to like dive into it or really try to learn it unless you appreciate the culture or you want it to become a part of you. And it's like your subconscious has to decide like, oh no, we want to learn this language. You can like your conscious mind can say we want to learn this language academically and we go through it, but you're not going to get in there with both feet until your subconscious says like, I don't know if you've ever maybe just doing this podcast, you were like, I kind of think about doing a podcast. Then all of a sudden there was this drive from inside you to like, no, I'm going to do this podcast. And that has to happen with a language too. And so I think it was like when I was like, I'm reinventing myself as Drew, this guy that speaks German. Then my subconscious was like, yeah, now we're going to really learn this language.
Right. Yeah. Like some people will say like, oh, it would be nice if, and then those are typically the people that aren't going to actually learn the language. Oh, I would love to learn Japanese. It's like, are you learning Japanese though? They're like, no.
Yeah. Well, and why? Because you like to watch anime, like you need a bigger reason.
Yeah. Having a reason definitely to sustain the marathon that is language learning. I think anything that requires a lot of time takes more than just kind of a flash in the pan of, oh, it would be neat if, or I saw a video of someone speaking German, so maybe it would be cool if I could speak German. I mean, you do have to have some kind of connection. And I mean, for me with my languages, it was typically like a relationship, like I was dating someone from another culture, and German was actually the only language that I learned without that. And I say learned, my German isn't great. It's probably like a B1 or something, and I don't really use it anymore, so it's kind of rusty. But I was very motivated. I did the exchange in Germany. I was one class short of it being my minor in university, and I really enjoyed German. But I did it for myself, and I did somehow find a reason to do it, a strong enough motivation.
The weird thing is, when I was an exchange student, my first month was also in Oldenburg.
Really?
Yeah.
Okay.
I remember very little, but yeah, we had a language school for a month in Oldenburg.
Well, I recommend you don't go to the bike shop.
Oh man, I know those guys, and you're just like, what do you do? Oh.
Some people say that Germans don't have a sense of humor, but you do stand-up comedy in Germany. What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I mean they do. I mean there's super intellectual people in Germany. They're gonna laugh too. Weirdly, the one club I go here, I'm a regular at here, is more sort of a blue collar club. So it's sort of wrong for me to say it's all these intellectuals. They do have a sense of humor, but they are very literal people. Like they like their line that takes me to the chicken. And so that's not somebody who's going to laugh a lot, but they do have a sense of humor. They sometimes have a very juvenile sense of humor, but they're people too. They like to laugh too.
Do you have to formulate jokes differently in German than you would in English to get laughs?
You do, but it's more a cultural thing. People love to say, "Oh, German doesn't work in comedy because you have to end on the verb, or you need the verb to come earlier for people to laugh," and that just isn't true. Like it. But you do have to you have to have a feel for where the laugh is in the sentence, and it is different than in German. I couldn't write down academically why it's different, but I have bits that I do in both languages, and the laughs come in different places. And there are some where I swear I'm going to get it at this point in this language, and I just can't do it, and I can't tell you why.
You just kind of have a feeling for it after doing it for so long.
Yeah, like there's this one part where it was a weird situation. I ended up at gunpoint with a SWAT team searching a hotel. And so I'm standing there in my underwear in front of these two young men, and I just said, like I regretted being in this town at that time, because if I was in Berlin that night, we would have had a good time. And actually, maybe that's what I need to say, because I say it in a different verb in German, and I get applause breaks, people love it, and I say it in English, and people are like, well, that's kind of
for the good time. That's the verb that's different.
Yeah, maybe I should say and I regretted that I was in that town and not in Berlin, because if I'd been in Berlin, we would have had a good time. I'm going to try it tomorrow night. I have an English gig tomorrow night. Thank you. Maybe I finally solved that one.
There we go. Yeah. I mean, it is the punchline,
yeah.
Right? So that's the one that has to hit.
Yeah, it's weird. It's just, I've been fighting with it forever. Like, why does it work? And it should be funnier in English. It should be way funnier in English.
I mean, I've heard that a lot of comedy is about expectation or surprises. Like, I mean, maybe not necessarily misdirection, but like the basis of comedy is not knowing exactly how it's going to end or being surprised by something. And so if the word you use is surprising, maybe that brings out more laughs. I don't know.
It's actually saying we would have had a good time is more obvious, but you can already, I mean, I was standing there in my underwear in front of two guys. Like, everybody's got it in their head a little bit, but you're probably thinking like, he's talking about cops. He's never going to go that direction.
Yeah. Maybe that's the misdirection more than the verb is. Yeah.
And I think I've been saying something would have gone down, and I think it's not enough. I should be like, oh, we would have had a good time. I'm going to try. I'm so going to try that tomorrow night.
Yeah, do it. Let me know if it works. Yeah.
But so it's just little tweaks like that of like, this works there, it doesn't work there. And then there's cultural stuff too. I can't tell deep cultural things that happen to me in Germany to an audience that doesn't know, doesn't know Germany that well.
Right. Yeah. You have to kind of change it depending on who your audience is. And I guess in Berlin, you might have people that are like newcomers to Germany, right?
Totally. And then I could do little jokes about not crossing against the light or stuff like that, but I can't get into the 3,000 different kinds of bread or how much they love cake. Like, yeah.
I mean, you're pretty uniquely situated though, because you can cater to both audiences. You've been in Germany long enough to relate to a German crowd, but also you have the foreign perspective because you weren't born and raised in Germany. So you can, relate to the newcomers as well. That's pretty unique.
Yeah. But I think I have more empathy for Germans now. Like, there's a certain spite that you get when you're first in Germany, like, dealing with the guy on the bike, like, and I've lost a little bit of that edge where I'm willing to, like, I have a little more sympathy for Germans sometimes. I started doing more English gigs, and I was like, oh, wow, I've got to go back to life as a foreigner in Germany jokes rather than, like, I've raised two kids here. I have a German wife. I'm getting a German passport. Yeah, it's like what you're saying. I have to have I got to pull back and have the foreigner perspective more.
I mean, sometimes I do feel bad because, I mean, I've done, a few episodes about Germany now on the podcast. And I do feel like I just complain the whole time. And like, I love Germany. I really do, and like I said, my family is all originally German on both sides, my mom's side and my dad's side. And my last name is, Hartmann, for goodness sakes, like I think Germany is great, but there are just some glaring differences that I think if you're only in Germany for a month, like I was, stand out and they kind of change your perspective. It's hard to really see like the real Germany if you're only there for a month. But I had like, kind of glimmers of hope or whatever, the light at the end of the tunnel, because after my German program, I hung out with a German friend and I stayed with him and his parents for like a week before I came back to Canada. And so then I was really immersed in like a German household, and we hung out with his high school friends, and we, went out for dinner and beers with his parents, and we did all these like German things. And I noticed that when I was a part of the club, Germans treated me very differently. Like when I was an outsider at a university where no one knew me and I had no friends, people were like a little bit like aloof with me. But being with local people and being kind of grafted into a friend group, they were curious about me and they wanted to talk. And then I was like, oh, I think maybe this is the real Germany. Like when you kind of get to a deeper level. Has that been your experience?
Yeah, they are very cliquey, very, very closed. Why am I going to commit any time to you? You're going to leave in a month. Like, why am I going to, I'd rather hang out with Stefan, my buddy over here. And but then you were in there. So now it's safe. Now we can talk to him and squeeze the knowledge out of him.
Yeah, exactly. So, I mean, I don't want to come across as too negative. I do think Germany, like any country, like no country is positive or negative, right? It's just like what it is. And it works for the people.
People say like a German trait is complaining. So complaining about Germany is actually German.
I mean, what's funny is that, every week, essentially, I'm talking about a different country on this podcast, right? So now it's Germany, but, last week it was something else. And next week it'll be something different again. And you do see the vibe of the people in the comments. Like sometimes I'll say things that I think are pretty benign and people in the comments would be like, oh my God, I can't believe you said that about my country. And with the German podcast, I'm pretty honest. I'm okay to talk about, things that I noticed and culture shocks and whatever. And never had any negative feedback from Germans at all. They're just like, "Yep, you're right."
Yeah.
I think Germans have a thicker skin, and they're more concerned with just like, "Oh, that was your experience, interesting." Even if they don't agree, I think they're okay with that. Where some people, I mean, and maybe Canadians are like this, I don't know, get like a little bit more defensive, where they're like, "I can't believe this foreigner said this horrible thing about where I'm from."
I think it's the Germans like to complain. So like I'd be complaining about the same thing,
Yeah.
Whereas like
More
another country would be like, no, I'm the only one allowed to criticize America because I'm American.
Sure. Yeah. There is that reflex, right? Where it's like, you can talk bad about it, or I can, but you can't, basically,
Totally.
But yeah, this has been a really fun conversation, Drew. Thank you so much for taking the time.
No, thanks for asking me. Yeah, it was cool. I was nervous. I'll admit I was nervous.
But not so bad, right? Just chit chat, nothing too formal.
Totally good. It was a fun time.
Awesome. Tell people how they can find you online or check out your comedy or anything you want to plug.
The best thing is Drew Portnoy Instagram. Just Drew Portnoy.
Mm-hmm.
Everything's there.
Sweet. I'll put a link to that in the description and people can check it out that way. Thank you so much. I appreciate it again. And yeah, have a good evening.
Cool. Thanks. You too.